Are you good for doing Do the Right Thing and then doing our weekly
Yeah,
roundup?
I know you've been wanting to talk about Do the Right Thing, so let's do that one. Did we not talk about it last week? I
No,
lose
we
track
did
of what we
not.
talked about. Okay.
I mean, we
I know
probably
we
might have
talked,
mentioned it, but
because we did talk some about seeing Spike Lee and Barry Jenkins talk. I couldn't remember.
yeah, I probably mentioned that I saw it, but we didn't go into it. So I had never. So prior to the Black Klansman when it came out, I had never seen uh, 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 a Spike Lee film, and when I saw Black Klansman, I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a mess, but he's doing interesting things, and uh, he's trying to say something really interesting, and he's using a lot of like archival footage type stuff. So it was very. I liked Black Klansman. I didn't love it. I thought it was interesting, and then over the last couple of weeks, not last week so much, but the week before, I watched Do the Right Thing, She's Gotta Have It, Da 5 Bloods, and Da 5 Bloods is a lot like Black Klansman, and I kind of liked it in a similar way. I might have liked it a little more. I don't know, but then Do the Right Thing, I think was like the last one I watched before the Q&A with Barry Jenkins. And just watching Do the Right Thing, I was like, oh, this is really good. This is more my kind of movie. So I'm now curious if I'm more interested in like early Spike Lee as opposed to later Spike Lee. But Do the Right Thing is just like, and it's not the kind of movie that I should like in a way, because it's not really very narrative. It's not, it's really about these different situations and how they're building to something, but not like, it's not like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and this happens. It's more like a thing happens, and it's like it's this tension building up, but it's all about racism, and it's all about different cultures interacting, and spoilers for the movie. Like, I think at the time I've seen South Side with You, so mild spoilers for that as well, which is about the first date between Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. And in it, he runs into his boss in that movie, and his boss is like, why did Mookie throw the trash can at the thing? And Barack Obama is like, oh, well, he was angry and he didn't want them to kill Sal, so he threw it at the store instead. And then later in the movie, he's like, oh yeah, I just told that to the boss because he's a white guy and he doesn't really know. And like, I think like 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 15 years ago, Theo, when I was younger, probably might have thought something similar to like that boss character, where I wouldn't have understood that like the throwing of the trash can at the store he was just angry, and he just wanted to destroy something, and like he wanted to destroy the institution, not the man.
Right.
So like, I wonder if I needed to see this movie now, and even if in a few years I'll have an even better understanding of it, because like there is so much in the movie about like Radio Raheem is kind of this. He's kind of a brute. He's kind of like, he wants to win. Like his thing is he like wants to win and have the loudest music. And so like that can be, and maybe he's obnoxious. Like that's his crime. And then he gets murdered by the police, and it's like, I don't know, he was obnoxious. Why did you murder him? Like, it's just so icky and evil, and like there's so much, and it's obviously really on the mind right now. And Spike Lee even did something recently after the death of
George Floyd.
Yes, and that it was about like how, and I've got to just, there's a part of me that wonders like, God, Spike Lee and just a lot of black activists and a lot of black people, maybe if not the entirety, but presumably not the entirety, but like most black people, like they've been fighting against this for like centuries. It's like it's a generational problem. And watching Do the Right Thing,
I think you mean decades, but yes.
Generations is what I meant. I think I said centuries, but I meant generations. Because like in Do the Right Thing, you have people representative of different generations. Because like Ozzie Davis, the mayor character, like he's a different generation, and like what he's doing in this generation is like different than what he would have been doing. But like it's kind of a generational problem. Like there's so much to Do the Right Thing that I think I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't watched it, both in this moment and also just at this later stage of my life. I'm 30, but like at my current age.
I think I agree with you. I think I watched it before the recent protests, and what do I want to say? The recent increase in activism. But it's been in the zeitgeist, and I definitely agree with you. And the reason I said didn't say centuries, is like, it wasn't even that long ago that a lot of Black people were slaves, which
Right.
is a really upsetting thing to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think on reflecting on it now, I get it more than I did at the time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of subtlety and nuance there, like you say. It's like this thing, you know. One of the things I've always liked about the My Favorite Murder podcast is like, the point is, you know, women don't have to do a thing to not deserve to die. Like,
Yeah.
if the murder victim is addicted to drugs, if they're a sex worker, if any of these things, doesn't matter, didn't deserve to die.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's, you know, because a lot of people try and turn it around and say, well, they did X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well.
Yeah. And I even currently, like, I've seen a few articles that are about how, like, George Floyd wasn't a saint. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's not the point. Like,
well, I've even seen, because we're talking about, is it Elijah McClain? Is that his name? In Colorado. There's been
I don't remember his name. Yeah.
I want to get it right, so.
Yeah, go ahead, look it up.
Yeah, Elijah McClain, by all accounts, sounds like an utter sweetheart who was like trying to be nice to the cops and the responders as they murdered him. But the point isn't, that's not the point. I mean, you know, it's nice to remember him, and it's not nice. It's good to know who he really was, and that he was like someone who played violin for cats. But even if he hadn't been a great person, he didn't, like, there was no reason for him to end up dead that way. And so, yeah, you're right. Radio Raheem is kind of unpleasant. Like, I'm not sure I want to deal with him. But that doesn't mean.
Yeah, well, it's like with Radio Raheem, it's like I can understand like Radio Raheem and who he'd be friends with and who his crowd would be. I am not a fan of obnoxious people, but that doesn't mean like I think obnoxious people should die. It means that I think obnoxious people should go be with friends with people who like obnoxious people. Like that's one of those things where it's like it's so mind-boggling to me. Where it's like sin was that he played his music too loud.
Isn't Last Black Man have kind of a moment of that? Because there's the Greek chorus is kind of annoying, and even Jimmy and I always forget the other guy. Mont. I always want to, Max or something. Mont. You know, they don't particularly like them, but one of those guys ends up being.
Yeah, he's killed.
By
I think he's killed by the police, isn't he?
I think so. So yeah, it's this, you know.
Is he killed by another gang? I can't remember now.
It's this weird thing where suddenly you have to justify why, you know, this person who wasn't doing anything, you know, deserves.
Yeah, and it's just, and do the right thing. It's so nuanced in all these different things. And it's even in, like, Radio Raheem has love and hate on his fists, which is actually a callback to a different movie that Spike Lee really likes. And I forget which movie it is. But, like, what he talks about with those fists is interesting. And then there's, like, a guy who's, like, comes by who's wearing a Larry Bird shirt. And if you didn't know who Larry Bird was or the Celtics, you wouldn't understand that, like, there's an even bigger thing. There's an even aspect of culture to that because it was Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson and blah, 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 blah. But he's still a white guy who lives in this neighborhood, who owns this building. And all the black characters are like, well, of course you can do that because you're white and you have money, whereas we're black and we can't do that because the system is against them. And also they may or may not have money. So it's like, there's just levels to these different things. And there's a nuance. I wonder, even like Spike Lee obviously meant to put a lot of nuance in it, but like anything, art is open to interpretation and is happy accidents all the time. So like, I wonder if Spike Lee I'd love to ask Spike Lee, like, well, how many of these moments were intentional? How many of these moments were not intentional? How many of them happened on the set? Like, I'm even curious to all of that, but watching it, it's just like, there's just all this stuff to it.
Yeah. So. I did look it up. The guy in last black man in San Francisco, Kofi, is killed by another man, according to Wikipedia, not by the police. But the point is still that I think Jimmy and Mont are dealing with the fact that they didn't particularly like Kofi, but
yeah, but like, and now he's dead because of, you know, kind of stupid reasons, as far as I remember. You know, it's an excessive,
and I think there's, God, I remember there being, I as I recall, isn't Mont, I think that's almost more about masculinity and kind of this culture that gets encouraged of being a certain way. Anyway, no, I agree with you about all of that, and I'd be interested to rewatch Do the Right Thing now with kind of a more mature perspective, honestly, on it, even though for me it was just a little bit ago. But there are other Spike Lee films.
We mature every day and every month, and you know more today than you did last week.
Yeah, but I'd be.
It's even interesting now that we're doing this podcast, and since we've been doing these videos, like I've changed my opinions on things we've talked about, and it's like we're evolving as humans, and we learn things, and we're like, oh, I was being stupid about this thing, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it is almost embarrassing to realize that, like, oh, here's someone who was trying to point out a problem. How many years ago? 30. It's
89. So it's just 31 years ago, 31 years ago, depending on the release date.
You know, so and just people haven't, you know, it's, and I mean, now I'm going to go off a little bit, but it's interesting because I was watching My Beautiful Laundrette last night, and that features a same-sex relationship between a white supremacist and a Pakistani man. But the white supremacist is kind of getting out of it. But it makes you frustrated because it makes me frustrated because I know that there are certain dominant companies that would like to market that, like, we're doing the woke thing, which has never been done before. And it's like, no, it has been done before, but no one put any money behind it or promote it. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting a little hyperbolic here, but you know what I mean.
Well, like, I was listening to a podcast. I have this podcast I'm listening to called Fanti, and like they were talking. It's two black guys, or sorry, one black guy and one black person, non-binary, I think. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about how, like, Aunt Jemima's label is changing, and they're like, I guess it's nice. I think they were basically like, we don't really care. Why don't you put like a black woman as the president of the company or something? And it's like that whole thing where, you know, Spike Lee, like, if you want it, like, if you go up to people and they're like, name a black director, and they're going to be like, Spike Lee. And it's like, well, I'm glad that we have Spike Lee, and he's an important person and has been doing lots of interesting work. But, and maybe now you might know Barry Jenkins, or you might know, you know, Steve McQueen, not the actor, the director. Like, so it's like, but like, that's a problem. Like, you want people in power, in places of authority. You want more Ava DuVernay's. You want more, oh shoot, what's the name of the lady who did Mudbound? I forgot her name, but like, you want people in positions, and you want people in the studios in positions of power. You like, it's not about like, it's also D. Reese. Thank you. It's also about, like, it's not bad to have these movies like Black Panther or Wonder Woman, but, and like that matters, but it also matters to have those people working behind the scenes and then
well, I was just watching on Twitter, apparently Hulu has removed the blackface episode of the Golden Girls, and I don't care about Golden Girls at all, but a lot of people do. But if a lot of people who do care were like, actually that episode's about them learning about this, and like there's an interracial marriage in it, and we're not asking you to do that, can you stop, you know, could police stop killing black people? And there being no repercussions.
It's like they took Gone with the Wind down, and it's like, and they were going to bring it back. It was never like, we're going to take it away forever and bring it back. Like, apparently they handled it funny, but like, the point is, like, maybe you should leave that episode there. Just put like some extra material, or maybe put like a write-up at the front that's like, hey, you know, this has troubling historical depictions. It was done
Well,
for
and
these reasons, and like
we
it's about
just heard-
understanding that.
We just heard Spike Lee talk about that himself. He talked about it in that discussion with Barry Jenkins that we watched, where he's like, I saw those movies. They're good movies. I saw them with no context, you know.
Well, I think he was even saying that he liked Gone with the Wind. I forget exactly what he said, but he said he liked it. And it's like, but you have to go into it with an understanding, and you need to be taught about why it's wrong that the slaves were depicted that way.
Right. And that's why I even was talking a little about Los Angeles Plays itself, and like to look at, you know, the message behind the media kind of a thing sometimes too. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways.
I feel like we cover the same territory sometimes, because I mean the truth is that what's going on in the world affects what we're watching and how we think about it, and what we want to
there
talk
are no
about.
There are no new stories, just new discussions about the same story, maybe,
I mean, I also just think we're thinking about
it, and it's interesting to us.
But it's also it's not going away, and it shouldn't go away. But that's why.
Yeah, the discussion shouldn't go away. The problem should be dealt with.
Yeah. So anyway.